The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of this weekend's BYU football and the new look Big 12 Conference. First and 12 is sponsored by Macy's Grocery Store. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome on in to First and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, coming to you on this Sunday morning. Every Sunday, 10 a.m. to noon. Also replayed 3 to 5 on KSL News Radio. Also airs on the KSL Sports Zone. Available on podcast too, KSL Sports app, and wherever you get your podcasts. Your weekly look at Big 12 football. And we got to just jump right in. It's our favorite segment of the week. It's always moving every single week. It's the Power Rankings here in the Big 12.
The Big 12 Power Rankings Big Board. A weekly rank of all 12 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
All right, first things first. Spoiler alert. Oklahoma's still at the top of the conference. I know it was just a 2-point win over UCF, but Brent Venables and his guys, Mitch, it's hard not to put them at the very top. Obviously, they're undefeated. They're the only ones that are undefeated, and they're keeping the hopes alive for the possibility of a college football playoff contender, possibly with the Sooners there in Norman. But the 31-29 win over UCF, I think was less a function of how Oklahoma's a faker in any sense. But John Rice Plumlee gives something else to Central Florida. Sorry, UCF. But they also, Mitch, give I think that you just have to figure it out every week. And when you're undefeated, it just gets harder and harder and harder to win. And they've already matched their win total from last season. So good for the Sooners this year, man.
UCF AD and Terry Mahajer is going to come for you, Alex,
if you
keep saying that Central Florida.
You know what? It's like that one guy who you couldn't say, let's get ready to blankety blank, or he'd come after you. You always had people listening. You can't be that guy. Terry Mahajer will absolutely. He almost reached across the table, Big 12 Media Day, and choked me. So yeah, I'll feel the wrath. I have a hard time shaking that habit, man.
Number 2, Texas. I got to ask, Alex, would you have considered moving Texas to number 1 had they blown out Houston after Oklahoma had a close call? Because when it was 21-0 over Houston, I was thinking maybe Texas has got to move up to that number 1 spot, but it stays in place.
No, because a blowout against Houston was supposed to be the standard, right?
Yeah,
so that's you holding serve. That's you kind of just being normal. Again, you're supposed to beat UCF by more if you're Oklahoma, but now Texas was supposed to beat Houston by that much, and the head-to-head, of course, is going to still go to Oklahoma between those two. And I don't think Oklahoma had an awful day. I just think that UCF showed up to play, man, and they have that target on their back. It's going to get harder every week. Number 3, the old power rankings as we get you going here. I was wondering too about this, because I actually saw when I saw the game go final between TCU and K-State, I thought, well, that wasn't much of a rematch from the old Big 12 championship game last year, which was an awesome game to watch. I think it went into overtime, didn't it? So that was an awesome game, and no such luck. 41-3, the Horned Frogs and Josh Hoover decided, nope, we're good. We'll just be paper tigers the first week against BYU out of the gates, and then we'll just go back to losing the rest of the way. TCU's a mess, but yeah, Kansas State, a hard number 3 too. I think they're in a very, very solid number 3 spot right there this week.
Number 4, Oklahoma State. They did have a win over K-State earlier this year, but I think the body of work at K-State still gets the edge. Oklahoma State, though, trending up. They're playing great football, and what a turnaround, because we've talked about it a few times here on the show, but, that loss early in the season, they seemed like they were disjointed in the locker room, but they've rallied. And Alan Bowman has been comfortably now as the quarterback, and they finally got a clear vision there, and it's worked. And now they're getting on a win streak, and, hey, maybe Bedlam, the final edition, as the folks around Oklahoma, when Bedlam gets laid to rest. Coach Venables.
Come on. What are we going to do?
Maybe Oklahoma State's got a chance to be a spoiler to OU. I'm sure they
No, you know what's great about that? And now that you say it, hey, you know what that means? That BYU game becomes a trap game. Mm-hmm. And so then it's because what weekend is Bedlam? What's the actual game for that? Or what's the actual date?
November
for that game?
4th.
Oh, okay. So no.
2 weeks
I
before.
guess it is a couple weeks before. So yeah, you kind of wish you were playing one of those guys afterward, but no, yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But BYU gets those two guys back to back. Can you believe that? Now when you look at it, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Yes. So there you go. Now we started to get a little bit weird because in the middle, I don't even know. It's like nobody wants to move up or down. It seems like Iowa State kind of just staying pat because they had a bye week. Kansas, same thing. West Virginia, I mean, I don't know what to think about Neil Brown's team, but we're back to thinking about this guy maybe losing his job at this point, or maybe at least get that seat getting hotter this year, right?
They're competitive, but yeah, they got to get to 6, and it's tough, and they're still at that 4-win mark, and tough to lose at home, tough to lose that Hail Mary last week. 2 winnable games, and they let him slip through the cracks. So, yeah, Neil Brown maybe, if he doesn't get to 6, then it becomes a real conversation again on his hot seat status. Number 8, BYU. They move up. Big bounce-back win for the Cougs. I think it was deserved for them to go up Tate. Now, this will be controversial, Alex. Number 9, who do we got there?
Yeah, TCU. I can't believe you put BYU ahead of TCU here, Mitch. No, we decided on this together. But I think it's because, I mean, overall BYU has a better record. TCU is, I mean, when you talk about, like, because it's such a weird whiplash, I think that just shows you how much of a mess they actually might really be. I don't think we got the real version of TCU last week. I think that you got just a week where they came out and they were fired up and they prepared for BYU better than BYU prepared for them. And then TCU this week gets their butts handed to them on the opposite side of things. And I think TCU, we could see them shoot back up the board. We could see them go even further down. I mean, it's crazy. I don't see them really sitting anywhere in the middle. They're schizophrenic with that thing, with them. And you know what? At number 10, I know you got a team right there who's at least not in the basement anymore like they have been.
That's Baylor, and I considered maybe UCF here but they haven't won any games. So Baylor gets the nod, and after they won a game at Cincinnati, and Blake Shapen showed a lot of promise because I really thought he was damaged goods. I mean, since that Big 12 championship game in 2021, he hasn't been good for Baylor. He's struggled, and I thought that was his best performance since the Big 12 title game a few years ago. So Baylor checks in at number 10.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Joey McGuire in Texas Tech at 11 because I like him. Again, I don't know. I have these coaches in my mind that I'm like, man, I want to see that guy in the league for a long time, and they might not be in the league for very long if they can't figure their stuff out. But Texas Tech at 11, and they might even fall even further by the time this whole thing is said and done. Maybe go on one of those famous BYU 4-game losing streaks like they had last year. I don't know. It's just bad look right now for Tech, and the Red Raiders fans are reeling right now.
Joey McGuire assembles talent almost as good as well as anyone in this Big 12. He can recruit at a high level. He's got a 5-star commit in the 2024 recruiting class, and he's got talent on that roster, but they are not disciplined, Alex. And then when you insert a true freshman at quarterback, the wheels just came off for Texas Tech. They were a mess against BYU. Number 12, UCF. Again, I think it was, even though they haven't won a game in the league yet, I think I saw a lot from them, and I think you're right that John Reese Plumlee just is a game changer for them. He brings so much more confidence to that offense. So they're the best of that AAC newcomers that are now in the league who fill the last 3 spots.
Hey, good for them. Anytime you can pull yourself out of the total basement, good for them. Yeah, you're right, though. The newcomers are struggling. Houston at 13, and I think that's like us being like, hey, man, Houston, nice job, you guys. We'll put you up at 13, and almost not just because you barely lost to Texas, but because number 14 is such a bad team right now.
That's Cincinnati, and this is what it's feeling like it was going to be all along with Scott Satterfield, and they surprised us all getting a full Pitt experience win where just it's Pitt being Pitt. But that's what that was, and Cincinnati is becoming what we thought. I mean, I predicted them in the preseason to go winless in the league, and they're well on their way because they're 0-4, and they're on a 5-game skid at the moment.
We'll take a break here. We've got our sound roundup around the corner, a special little ditty that's been drawn up by our producer, Eric, who we are very grateful to because we asked kind of as a joke, and he put together something amazing you do not want to miss. It's all part of our sound roundup, and so many more things going on right here. It's a 1st and 12 on a Sunday. Thanks for joining us, Alex, Kirry, Mitch Harper, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone, and KSL News Radio. Stay right here.
Big 12 Sound Roundup.
Check 1, 2.
The best bites, cheap shots, and excuses from Saturday's post-game news conferences.
I've been waiting for this segment all day, knowing what our producer Eric has in store. This is a fun one. First and 12, Alex Kirry, Mitch Harper. It is KSL News Radio. It is the KSL Sports Zone. You can hear us on both of those on a day like today as we get you ready for not just everything across the Big 12, but, of course, there's a lot of that BYU flavor to it and what they did last night in that win against Texas Tech. Of course, if you missed any of the show, you can download the podcast wherever podcasts are found. It's all brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping. And this is one of our fun ones here, so let's jump in right here. It is our weekly Sound Roundup, and I think that the best one – now, last week we even mentioned it, and this is what it sounded like because we were listening to Mike Gundy, and we couldn't help but think that it sounded a little bit like it needed a bit of a remix. So here's where this moment was born last week when we actually had a moment where our producer Eric said, "I got you," and he took care of it. So here was Mike Gundy from last week, and here's what we got.
Eric gave us intel that he might be, working behind the scenes on that Big 12 is hard remix.
Big 12 hard.
They're working hard. They're working hard. And Big 12's hard. 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 They're working hard. They're working hard. Big 12's Big 12 hard. Big 12's hard. Big 12's
yes.
Hard. They're working hard. They're working hard. Big 12's hard.
Oh my gosh, Eric.
Yes.
That is so good. Man.
I just got a call from Brett Yormark saying, yes, it's additive. I love it. It's younger. It's hipper. Thank you for the question.
I love these kids. Can we get to play more basketball? Can we have this at a basketball tournament?
Outstanding, Eric. Well done.
Eric, fantastic job. So that was from last week. Now, that wasn't even Mike Gundy. Who was it that said
Dana
that?
Holgerson.
It was Holgerson. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, because Big 12's hard. That's how you have to win the game. You got to throw a freaking Hail Mary to win the thing.
Big 12's hard, man. Big 12's
hard. You got to work hard.
Great stuff.
Every week we look for something along those lines. And so now a couple things. Mitch pointed this one out. This was in the postgame of BYU and Texas Tech, and it was the running back Aiden Robbins who got a nice little kind of welcome back to Provo after his rib injury and kind of got some more carries, 16 carries for 49 yards. Workhorse type of day for him and getting BYU's run game back on track. But more importantly, he pointed out how big time the stadium atmosphere was. Of course, very different from the time when he was playing football at UNLV.
It's crazy. It's truly crazy. I played in some big stadiums, but I ain't never played in a stadium like this with these type of fans. Like, it's a difference between just having people fill up seats, and having people fill up the seats and they making noise, you know what I mean? People that's into the game. Everybody out there sober, too, so I love it. They just out there yelling.
How fun was it to be in the locker room tonight, particularly after the disappointment last week?
I didn't make it in the locker room, actually. I was out there with Darius and Keelan and Keaton and Chase signing autographs and stuff, trying to make the kids happy, but I'm sure there was a party in the locker room, man. I hope to see some videos of some guys dancing.
How much of a confidence boost is this performance for you individually going forward and what you can contribute down the stretch run?
I never really was down on myself. It was good to get my feet wet, but I always had confidence in myself. I was a 1,000-yard rusher last year. It was never a doubt in my mind that if I could do it or not. It was just when I was going to be able to do that.
The third down is last question. 3rd and 13 seemed like a conservative play call, but you pick up the first down, put the hammer down in this game. Just was that the thought that you were going to go pick that up?
Yeah, of course. It's just I don't make the calls. Whatever A-Rod calls, it's my job to go execute that, and he made that call, so that means he believed in me to go do it, and so I had to go show him that I can do it.
So there you go, Aiden Robbins. Mitch, you pointed it out. They are cray-cray in the stands there at BYU, and they can get
how
wild
could they not?
even when they're sober. Come on, it was the
How
Bacon
could they
Maple
not?
Bar yesterday.
When you're getting an absolutely jacked Cosmo in front of you, a 70-year-old Cosmo's a grandpa. He's 70. Dude's an absolute unit. He's the peak cat performance. Okay, Cosmo is a beast. He's absolutely jacked out of his mind. So how could you not? Even if you're sober, you got to be hyped because you're seeing Cosmo with some flamethrowers, the fire knives. It's outstanding. And Aiden Robbins was very good for BYU too. It'd be 46 yards, but it was impactful in some of those carries, and I thought it was far and away his best performance as a BYU Cougar.
I thought it was it was metaphorical when Cosmo ripped the shirt off and revealed the very weird Cougar six-pack. So there you go.
Well, the thing is,
do you see those in nature a lot? Do they have those in nature? If they stood up, do they have a Cougar six-pack? I don't think so.
Here's a Cougar cat stat. I don't know if that's a thing, but BYU got their first win, Alex, when Cosmo danced with the Cougarettes. First time it's happened since 2017 when he busted out the Ayo and Teo Rolex viral video. They've been winless in those games.
I didn't know that. I think that you just assume if Cosmo's dancing at night, they probably won that game because it was at night.
Oh, no.
My goodness.
It was a winless stretch, so they changed the tune because he broke out a move with the Cougarettes, and then he's just flexing for the Cougarettes. He probably took a selfie, shirtless, show that six-pack. I'm picturing the stepbrother scene when the brother comes up in the treehouse and says, "You want to see this? You want to touch this?" Didn't think so.
He has huge Cougar pecs. What is that about? All right. This one was a little
Speaking
gem.
of pecs.
I was going to say, this one was a little gem we found in the Oklahoma game. Nothing better than a backhanded compliment from the best team in the conference right here. Brent Venables, after the game, congratulating UCF. Here's what it sounded like. Here's how he rolled it out. I think he knew it sounded weird, so he went straight into a golf metaphor.
Really proud of our team. Congratulations on just a great game by Coach Malzahn and his staff, and certainly his team. We were fortunate to win the game. We made enough mistakes today to lose. Captain Obvious here, but we were able to overcome it. And kind of like in golf, on the scorecard, there's a real small little box when you make that par. I hadn't made many, but you can't explain everything that happened in the game or on that particular hole. Not enough room, and it all counts the same if it's a par. And so we'll take it. I can find lots of different ways to win the game. Thought we got into a really good rhythm on defense early. 4 straight drives of 3 and out, and then gave up a drive there where we stop them on 3rd down on the goal line, and then get the taunting penalty, and our guys continue to fight. But this game will punish you for the lack of poise and discipline. Challenge the team to start the week on the back half of the season to be, strive to be described when people describe this team, something that you can, identify, the DNA of Team 129 and, strive for people calling you disciplined. And we were exactly opposite of that today.
I'm convinced Brent Venables did not know the team he faced. That's why he pivoted to Coach Malzahn.
That's what I was going to say. He read Malzahn off of his hand, too, I feel like. And he's never played golf before because you don't put a box around a par. Now we know for sure that Brent Venables cheats at golf. So there we have the evidence. Thank you very much. That's part of our sound roundup. We're having way too much fun with this one. Mitch, what do we have on the flip side here as we get to the next portion of our program?
Four Corners Whip Around. Utah USC, that was a big game, and Arizona State Washington. So we'll talk about that and then what's next in the Big 12 for Week 9. It's all brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. Macy's. Happy shopping, taking the time out. We'll get to that Utah USC game in our Four Corners Whip Around right here on 1st and 12, and it's powered by KSL Sports.
The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. 1st and 12. A total roundup of this weekend's BYU football and the new look Big 12 Conference. 1st and 12 is sponsored by Macy's Grocery Store. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
That new look Big 12 is going to feature the Four Corners schools next year. Each week here on 1st and 12, Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. We get a look around the four corners, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, and Colorado, what they're up to. We keep tabs on them, and we do it every single week in our Four Corners Whip Around.
The Four Corners Whip Around. Whip Around. We check on future Big 12 opponents and rivals from the Four Corners.
All right, let's start things off with, I predicted it last week, Arizona State showing up against the number 5 Washington Huskies.
You called it.
I said it was going to be a little bit of a sleeper game for Washington. They're still a little bit hungover from that win over their rival Oregon, and sure enough, it took a 90-yard pick six for them to get this win. Michael Penix Jr., 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions on the night, and so there's a little something that, you know, if you're Arizona State, you go, look, we are 1-6, but it seems like they've been close in a lot of these games. So I don't totally write off what they're doing at Arizona State because I think there's a lot of pride right there in that program because they're building something. But you got close, and Washington, you can't have a game like that against a non-Arizona school, a non-Arizona State school. But that's what the Sun Devils did across. In this one. But, yeah, like I said, that's a nice – you knew that they were going to be able to – Kenny Dillingham, poor guy. I hate saying that because it's like bless his heart. But you know what? That team's not very good. They're 1-6, like I said, but they've been close in a lot of games.
And their only win is against Southern Utah. The remaining schedule, Washington State, at Utah, at UCLA, Oregon, Arizona. Mm-hmm. They might be going 1-11. But, hey, just show promise, show signs that you can maybe build on it because Dillingham's a good recruiter, and I think he'll get some good talent to Tempe, but it is a big rebuild. Herm Edwards left that cupboard bare, but that was a nice effort competing against a high-powered offense like Washington and only limiting them to 15 points.
Next up in the schools.
Wild game.
I would, this one, of course, the local flair on this one's a big time. And let me just go with the big headline, of course, which is that Cam Rising is out for the rest of the season for the Utah Utes. Not shocked at all, but we finally at least got word. They kept it under their hat long enough, whatever. Cam Rising out for the rest of the year. And the Utah Utes have gone 4-0 in the last 4 games against USC. And speaking of teams who never want to play other teams again, USC will be so happy to see Utah in the rear view. But a final kick at the buzzer there by Cole Becker, you get yourself a win. And Kyle Whittingham is just a freaking magician against USC. And poor Caleb Williams was sad on the sidelines, Mitch. I don't know if you saw it after the game, but he wasn't very happy about this one. Nobody showed his fingernails, and I'm mad about it. I thought that was a big storyline. No one showed it.
I was disappointed in that, too, that we didn't see an update on the nails. Like, it was the first time I have ever been curious, hey, well, what's on those nails? I needed to say that more to my wife. She's getting her done, and I always go, she's like, you didn't notice my nails? And I was like, well, they're not like Caleb Williams. They don't have explicit messages on them. But
blank, Mitch.
Then she then proceeds to say that after I don't recognize him. Utah, they have just found ways to get it done, and to win 34-32 at USC. Suddenly, Alex, I think they're set up to chase again a three-peat. A couple weeks ago, I thought, no way, they're not going to come close to having a three-peat, but they're in the hunt once again for the Pac-12. And I'm curious, too, you brought up Cam Rising. There's a lot of talk about he gets a medical red shirt. He's got to get approved for that by the NCAA. Do we see him in the Big 12 next year, or does he maybe transfer, you think? Like, what do you think is the probability that he is actually lining it up in some Big 12 action next year, you think?
Here's the thing is I don't think he's a big-time NFL guy. After a year like this, I mean, he was already not really somebody who was going to be a draft pick type guy. He was probably more along the lines, according to a lot of scouts, going to be a late round guy or just frankly undrafted. And when you're that kind of grade and you don't have anything to show from your senior year, you have a really good resume. It's pretty sharp. But I don't know. The thing is that there's a little bit of ill will with him rolling out the way he did. And I know injuries are injuries, but I think there's this feeling that people felt like he kept it under his hat so he could get paid, which is fine. Like, these guys have to take care of themselves. But the only problem with that is that now I don't think you're going to see that money that might be something that could be the lure. Isn't that weird that we're talking about that? But that money, I think, it's a real thing. I mean, and if it's not on the table, and if you don't have the wherewithal to be like, you know what, I don't know if I want to come back for another year to try to do this thing again and maybe injure myself again and then really be done with the NFL stuff. But, who knows? These guys can make their own decisions. But, yeah, Cam Rising, wrapping it up. Bryson Barnes earning his freaking keep, man. He did it, and it was a nice win for the Utes and just pulled it out. Those close games have been signature, and don't call it a non-rivalry. Even though it goes off into the sunset, it was one of the best ones we've seen in recent history.
Big win, and the Big 12 gets a split against the Big 10 in these games.
I'm telling you, USC hates everybody right now. They just can't wait. They want to beat everyone, but they hate everyone, but they hate Utah more than anybody.
And has Caleb Williams become instantly unlikable?
100%.
It feels like he's just became an unlikable player, where at first I think everyone just loved how he played, and now it's like, you know what, just move on to the NFL already, because his personality is easy to not cheer for.
Right, doing the Dr. Pepper commercials and everybody looking at him going, but he's this week when he was asked about it and he got after that Notre Dame guy who, did you see that whole interaction, by the way?
Yes.
He goes after that Notre Dame student who, who puts him on his TikTok, and he goes, I can't pay attention to some sheep who's out there. I'm a lion. I don't pay attention to that. And you're like, dude, you just mentioned it. He won. This nameless kid just won the battle. But, yeah, I've never liked him. So there you go. I mean, I like competitors, and he is one, but – yeah, there's an ego there, and I think USC doesn't help with that. And that's your Four Corners whip around right there. We'll come back. We will jump back in again, and let's give you a preview as to what the rest of the Big 12 schedule looks like next week. Some teams going to their bye weeks, and we're going to be back into some full schedules again, but lots going on next week. A bunch of games you don't want to miss. We'll tell you about it next. Stay right here. It is 1st and 12. Right here on KSL News Radio, and as heard also on the KSL Sports Zone. And download the podcast wherever you can find your fine podcast. More to go. Stay with us.
Sunday's just the start of the Big 12 and Power 5 Breakdown. Listen to Unrivaled Monday on your drive home. Afternoons 3 to 6 on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Busy week ahead in the Big 12 Conference. We're always keeping tabs on all things Big 12 football. Here on 1st and 12, Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. Appreciate all of you always listening to the program. It's been a lot of fun each and every week doing this show with Alex. I think we've been having just a lot of fun. Speaking for myself, I think you feel the same way, though, Alex. We've just enjoyed going kind of neck deep in this league every single week and really covering this thing full throttle, because this is, here in Salt Lake, and this is the league that's going to represent this market going forward. Yep. And there's a lot of passionate fan bases in this league, and these fan bases around the conference are going to have some great matchups to consume this weekend, as Week 9 is a loaded slate.
Well, and before we get to that, also forcing our producer Eric to also enjoy himself on weeks like this. We appreciate all the work that he does on a weekly basis. It is a ton of fun. So as you look at it, of course, Mitch, you're making the trip down to Austin. Now, I think you did make the trip down when they won in 2014, 13. What was the year they actually? I can't 14. Remember the actual. So, did you make the trip down there? Were you actually up in the press box working on that one, or was that a little bit prior to your time?
I was not. So that was just one I watched on a television set. So I've never been to Austin. So I'm looking forward to this one.
It's going to be a lot of fun, but it is going to be a very difficult game for BYU. I don't know what your thoughts are on this one, but with the possibility of Quinn Ewers being out and another backup taking on BYU, and I think Texas feeling the pressure to be like, well, we're home and we had a cruddy week last week. We got to show out. I think BYU might be a victim of that for next week.
I think you're right, but I feel like it's just a nice spot to be in where there's just nothing to lose, and I do like that BYU got a little bit of momentum coming from that Texas Tech game where, the defense has playmakers, Eddie Heckard, Tyler Batty, even the new middle linebackers at the max spot, Harrison Taggart, Cialia Serra.
How about a Serra? Yeah. How about a Serra coming through on that TFL that he had? I thought, man, that kid, good for him, man, because like his number may not have been called all year long if it weren't for injuries. And I really liked to see when I saw it, I was like 54. Is that a Sarah busting through on the TFL? It was awesome, man.
It was, and he was dealing with the MCL injury in fall camp. Got his first playing time last week against TCU, and he's making the most of his opportunities, and he's giving you flashes of his potential. I mean, he was a 4-star recruit, and he's going to be a good one for B1. So I like that they just go into a setting where there's low pressure, and because Kalani teams, they do well in low-pressure games. Think about Wisconsin in 2018. When they're just kind of written off and there's no expectations to perform, they do well. And, look, they got the vampire thing against them. It's a 1:30 kick. It's going to be on ABC, and we'll have it on KSL News Radio. Maybe they can, in that trend of playing poorly in the day, but there's nothing to lose. And, everyone's going to expect you to lose, so just go in loose, play your best, and see what happens. Kind of like what Houston had today or yesterday. If BYU can just be in the game in the fourth quarter, hey, I'd be just fascinated to see how that happens, because then Texas is getting a little uneasy and they might do a little finger pointing, and BYU maybe can capitalize. So let's just see what happens. Oklahoma at Kansas. Now, this is a game to me, 10 a.m. Fox. I feel like this is upset potential here. Kansas is good at home. We'll see what happens with Jalen Daniels. Of course, that's always the big storyline with the Jayhawks, but I predicted in the preseason this was the game that Oklahoma would lose. I thought that they'd lose to Texas, but they obviously got that one. I feel like Kansas pulls an upset here.
Well, and they're coming
really
off
maybe edges themselves.
Right, and they're coming off the bye, right? And so the thing is,
Yes.
is that maybe they come out and they go, hey, do the thing what BYU is supposed to do, and they didn't do it. Come out refreshed, get after Oklahoma, who hasn't had a break yet, and they're looking is 7-0, and Kansas is coming in there going, hey, we just came off a bye. We'll see if you guys can figure this out week in and week out. Although Oklahoma's probably going, yeah, we're not going to let our guard down again like we did against UCF. Houston at Kansas State. This would be about the wildest upset that we've seen in a while, but Houston also, but the Big 12 has provided some stupidity like that this year already, so who knows? I just can't see them going into Manhattan and getting anything done, the Houston Cougars.
Yeah, I don't see that. And then also in that 10 a.m. window, West Virginia at UCF. Got to win that one if you're West Virginia, and UCF still looking for their first Big 12 win, so good storylines in that one, 10 a.m. on FS1. Then in the 1:30 slot, you got BYU at Texas, which late last night, ABC gets the call there for BYU in Texas. It was either ABC or ESPN, so you get the network television treatment. And then in that same window, Iowa State goes to Baylor. Baylor's the resident streaming team this year. They're Big 12 now on ESPN+. What do you make of the Cyclones? Do you think they'd come back from a bye and get a win on the banks of the Brazos in Waco?
I love the idea that Baylor, I think they figured some things out. Next week we're going to find out that they actually did not. I see Iowa State still rolling like they just, why not? Baylor, it's not like Baylor's been any good at home. It's just they were a struggle even there in Waco, but has Blake Shapen figured it out? Is Jeff Grimes going to be airing it out, per his AD's orders? Maybe. Cincinnati at Oklahoma State, that's your ESPN2 6 p.m. kick. You know what? Cincinnati beating Oklahoma State, it would be a very Big 12 move, but I see Mike Gundy just trending so far upward for this Cowboy team.
And Ollie Gordon at running back, Alan Bowman at quarterback, that is becoming quite the tandem. Ollie Gordon has rushed for over nearly 600 yards the last 2 weeks. He has been incredible.
Crazy.
For Oklahoma State. And, you can't expect that sort of workload every week. But, man, he rushed for 280-plus against West Virginia. And Oklahoma State's offense, they've settled in. The offensive line had a completely new run-blocking scheme, their new blocking scheme, and they've settled in. And they've kind of figured out all their personnel, and they're gaining confidence. And Mike Gundy teams just always kind of they start to surge in the back half of seasons, and it's feeling kind of like a classic Mike Gundy team once again, where they're starting to play their best football at the midway point.
So it's listen, Texas Tech and TCU, your only two teams with byes next week. Both of them need it. That means they went the longest stretch without a break. And in terms of regrouping, Joey McGuire, that Texas Tech team, And then Sonny Dykes, who went, well, 1 week we give up, or 1 week we lose by 40. We win by 33 the week before. It's a wild thing, man. And to see that TCU team be so much different than they were last year, and to already have 4 losses in the season is just crazy. So
it's wild too, Alex,
Yeah.
to think that those teams are already 8 games down. You're thinking,
I
whoa,
know.
we only got 4 games left. I'm leaving Provo last night. And I'm saying, whoa, Texas Tech's 3-5. I think I only got 4 games left. Like
it is. We're
time's
week
ticking.
8 now. Next week is week 9. I mean, that's where we're at right now. That's what crazy our lives have become, because it's going to be November. After next Saturday, we're into those November games for BYU. So, and then, of course, that game next week at Texas, I'm really looking forward to. Hey, have fun down there, by the way. Should be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a good time.
Again, by the way, BYU was a team that Texas was like, we're never going to schedule these cats. Ding dong, here they are, you know.
Tyson, what the hurdle?
Tayshawn, hey, that Tayshawn Hill's a good kid, but I never want to see his dang face around here ever again. All right, for Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, our producer, Eric does such a fantastic job. Eric Cabrera just hitting the buttons and a lot more, obviously, behind the scenes, doing such a good job. We appreciate all the work he does every week. So for Mitch Harper, I'm Alex Kirry. You can hear both of us, Cougar Nation, tomorrow for Mitch. And, of course, you can hear me 3 to 6 on the KSL Sports Zone as well. Tune in all week long on the KSL Sports Zone. We're going to break down all of the local teams, and Mitch and Matt Baiamonte on Cougar Sports Saturday. Did I get us all in there, Mitch? Did everything get promoted?
We got it all.
Okay. All the contracts have been honored, so there you go. So for all those guys, I'm Alex. We'll see you next week, everybody. Thanks for being with us.